folks. This is Jennifer David and
Jennifer
right?
Herzig. Yeah.
Yeah. And we are here today with Kayla Laux and Chloe, her
Yeah.
beautiful daughter, and actually happens to be my granddaughter, which makes Kayla my daughter as well. So she wanted to come on today and talk about and help us celebrate World Down Syndrome Day.
Yay! So cute. Thanks. Yeah, this is our Chloe bug.
She's a natural. Look at that.
She is a very people person. She's very social. It's funny. It's cute to see her saying hi now to strangers when we go out.
Oh, and now how old is she?
She's 15 months, so going on 16 months.
First time's always a charm.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Chloe and kind of how you and the family are celebrating today.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'll be honest, we aren't doing a whole lot on World Down Syndrome Day because she is 15 months. It makes it a little bit harder for us to get out and do some community events. She's got nap time. She likes to go to bed at 6:30. Hi. We're gonna go one of a local Westfield mom. I hope I can talk over her. A Westfield mom. Hi. You say hi, is doing a bake sale for fundraising for the Lucky Mama Project. But I know yesterday Down Syndrome Indiana went to the State House and they passed out mismatching socks to state legislators, and they got to talk about a few of our kiddos and celebrate them.
They did that at the State House?
State Capitol, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they did that yesterday. We, again, were able to make it because of nap time. So
do you have your socks on today? I gave you guys some socks at Christmas.
Oh, I didn't think about those being mismatched socks. So
those are what they're from. So those are from where I live in Charlestown. We have a Zoe down there, and every year her mom has been getting people in the community to help buy the mismatched socks. So everybody in Chloe's school, her whole grade, wears the socks, and they've been doing that with her for, I think, several years. And this is her last year that they're doing it. So yeah, that's where those socks came from.
I just thought they were very cool socks.
Oh, really?
I didn't realize what they were because it wasn't like specific on it to me. It was like a chip and a guacamole, and I just thought they were, because we always get socks for Christmas. I just thought they were funky ones. Which I can talk a little bit about. Chloe Cares. I ended up organizing a t-shirt fundraiser to give money back to Down Syndrome of Indiana and Lucky Mama Project. I might have to pass you back to Dada for a second. So give me 1 second. Let me do that. And
costly. Oh, you didn't go to Daddy. Okay.
I couldn't find him for a
second. That's okay.
So I just texted him. But yeah, so we did a t-shirt fundraiser, which I partnered with my brother who has a screen print shop. And this is great though. These vocals, we're working to start speech therapy a couple of weeks ago. So this is all great to hear her.
I can't hear her really, but you can see her.
I can't hear her.
Oh,
okay.
You can?
Yep. We hear you, but like I can see her mouth moving, but I don't hear
her. Okay. Have you guys been able to see her at all? There we go.
Well, one of the big things with Chloe is, you knew a little in your pregnancy that she had Down syndrome. And I think you were really hoping to be able to get on one of the Medicaid waiver programs after you had her. And right at around the time that you had her is when some things had come out the state that they were really revamping the way that they are doing what she would have probably been eligible for at the time was the A&D waiver. But now that's kind of changed. Do you have any kind of updates on that for families? Because I know you're not the only family that's waiting for services and supports.
I don't really have an update on what the process is looking like for people. I do understand that it's becoming extremely difficult to have phone calls to connect with people. For Chloe, I very quickly applied for the FSW waiver, which we're on the wait list for that, but we also were able to apply, like you said, the A&D waiver. And we did like a scheduled phone call, which they actually ended up, sorry, I don't mean to talk so negatively, but they ended up having all the wrong information. They didn't have my phone number. They didn't have the right diagnosis. They had her name. They had her name.
So you got in touch with them.
I was waiting one day for a phone call and it just never came. And me and many other families, that's extremely stressful to miss something that's required of us. So I ended up contacting them, did the interview, and then I actually never heard back until about a month ago. So
How much time was that?
I want to say that it's been probably a year, a little over a year. Yeah.
How much time was in between? Was that a year in between the time you applied and heard?
I heard from them now recently. It was because I mean it was probably December. It was a year. It was a year. We did the interview and then now it's March. So we got a letter that said she was on the wait list, or no, she was no longer on the wait list, and that I had to contact somebody, and then I did, and then they just took my information very briefly and let me know to just make myself available for a phone call. So that's what we're doing right now.
Some phone call at some point in time, just make sure you're available.
Yeah, which is very hard because we're already getting lots of phone calls. One, because I work. Two, we have lots of medical appointments. So I have phone calls all day long, and we have spam phone calls. So I don't know. I mean, we're in the middle of therapy sometimes. And so I'm in the middle of a session as a behavior consultant. It's very tricky. I have a lovely advocate, which I know we were going to talk about, the Lucky Mama Project. So that's how I got connected. The Lucky Mama Project is a non-for-profit that was started by another mom who, I don't want to butcher exactly what her mission is, but basically bringing supports to first-time moms with children with Down syndrome, and she's continuing that afterwards as well. So we have a Facebook group that we can ask lots of questions. She shared a care package when we came home from the NICU with Chloe, which was extremely sweet. It's a very emotional time during that. They hosted their first, what did she call it? I think it was just maybe called like the Lucky Mama Conference. And we had speakers there. It was basically, she spoiled us. But
What is her name?
It's Heather Wise Gregg. So Heather Gregg.
Just to kind of share with some folks, you are the CEO of a waiver company. You are a behavior consultant.
Mm-hmm.
Your family has been in this field and done this work for decades. And it is absolutely no easier for you to get supports, services, and answers than it is for anyone else out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been struggling.
Yeah, and just trying to get information, which is one of the big reasons why Jennifer and I wanted to start this show, was to share information and resources and supports with families and stories as well.
Yeah. Like early on with our diagnosis with Chloe, I joined I have the special needs Facebook group of Indianapolis. That was my first plug into this community. And no, I just Googled on, I love Facebook. I'm a Facebook person. So I just found a group, and that's how I figured out. I just shared our information, who we are, what we were experiencing. And someone linked me up to the Lucky Mama Facebook group and Facebook project. So they have a completely separate Facebook group for families with the child with Down syndrome. So on there, I was able to just ask every question that I needed, which is, it can be a lot because there's a lot of medical pieces.
There's a lot of medical things. One thing I've noticed a lot just with Facebook, because I love Facebook too, is something that's catching a lot of attention with the Down syndrome community is also applied behavior analysis. And using that, obviously you can use ABA for anything, anyone, but yeah, a lot of times it's synonymous with autism, but it's also, like I said, being used a lot with individuals with Down syndrome.
Yeah, my background is actually my bachelor's is in social work, and then my master's is in ABA, and I've done a lot of experience in centers too. So I knew that ABA is great for anyone. Actually, when I was pregnant, went to a conference with Down syndrome of Indiana, which was all behaviorally related and focused a lot on ABA. And I actually asked a question about our kiddos and if Chloe was going to be able to receive ABA, because I know communication is so valuable for her, and it's going to take a lot of work for her to get there. And I knew that ABA is very good for that. And that's when I was updated that no, our individuals just alone on Down syndrome cannot receive ABA in the state of Indiana.
That's a state thing, because Jennifer, have you heard of other states? I know Colorado, I think, is one. that you can get ABA services for other, if you have other diagnoses.
It makes no sense because I mean the techniques you use in ABA, they work across different diagnoses, and it's just hard to understand why you would just limit it so much.
Mm-hmm. One of the women there answered the question, and she said that we had been fighting for this for like 13 years. So it's a fight that's been happening.
I hadn't heard about it. I hadn't really heard anything in Indiana about that. They need to make a bigger noise,
Yeah.
a louder noise.
Yeah. Which is tricky right now with what is currently happening in terms of just all services for individuals with disabilities. So
maybe that might be something good to come out of this down the road, that maybe this, with limiting ABA, that maybe there'll be more opportunities for other people, other diagnoses, I'm not sure. But this might be the opportunity to start making more noise about that and getting that as a service for other folks. I mean, I used it on you when I was going to school, and I learned those kind of things. I know my husband uses some ABA stuff on me, and I use stuff for myself too. So.
Well, and as a behavior consultant, now I do not have an ABA background. I have a social work background, but I use the ABA. Like,
you got a puppy, right? Are you using it on your new dog?
A little bit, maybe.
Without noticing.
Like working in homes with people, with kids, I have for sure fallen back on those techniques.
Yeah.
They have worked across the board for everyone. So
people participate in applied behavior analysis all day long. They just don't know that that's what they're doing. I mean, I think one of the biggest ones is just, it's reinforcement, right? I mean, most people wouldn't be going to work if they weren't getting a paycheck, or you pay your light bill, you get to keep your light bill on. That's all just, I think you were talking earlier with your puppy, trying to keep him quiet for a little bit, you're being proactive, like taking care of the environment in situations, ahead of time. That's applied behavior analysis. It is so much a part of our everyday life. So, well, hopefully that's something that we'll see more about with Down syndrome and many of the people that have communication challenges and need some additional supports. It's not just for behavior that we think of, like somebody being naughty. It's teach a lot of pro-social skills too. So
yeah. Down syndrome of Indiana is another one of my favorite resources that has been helpful with Chloe. So and the reason this tied back into is because they have a policy program. And so I was thinking about ABA and just anything that's kind of affecting the Down syndrome community. They're on it. I think they meet every quarter. Sometimes they go to Washington and are advocating and fighting in terms of legislation. So they've got a really good program with Down syndrome Indiana.
Is it online or is it in person? You say they meet quarterly?
It's virtual. It is virtual. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if that's going to change, if it's always been that way. I did reach out a few months ago because I was very interested, but I'm slowly learning just as a mom with Chloe what my limitations are in terms of advocacy and policy change and just fundraising, all those kinds of things that
limitations. What limitations?
You're
my daughter. You have no limitations. This guy's world.
No, I can't. Time.
Okay.
About our interview is time and sleep are my two barriers in terms of what things I want to do, which we're going to talk about Chloe Cares a little bit. That's where Chloe Cares came from. Is Chloe Cares is a initiative under the Kimberly Renee Foundation with Jennifer. And so Chloe Cares is just a very small program that I can maintain on my own time to do these efforts that I want to do and envision. Just kind of, it's the website, like I'm using Facebook a lot right now. So the shirts were my first fundraiser that I wanted to do, to basically whatever money that we profited off of, we're going to donate back to the Lucky Mama Project in Down syndrome Indiana. But there's just a wide variety of resources that I want to use on it. And that's what it basically is I just have such a wealth of knowledge and experience of things that I love to share with people. And I'm not getting that much interaction anymore to be able to do that, because we are home, we are doing therapies, we are working, me and my husband, and all those things. And so many of us are on Facebook connecting with each other. And so I just wanted to use this platform to continue bringing resources that's not very specific to the certain area. I have the Down syndrome, Chloe's crew, that's our buddy walk slogan. So I have that as like an area, but then I'm also focusing on like mental health, and then I want to focus on family and children because that's very important to me. So kind of all those different avenues that I can share resources, do fundraising. I'm going to do a project called the Glimmers Project. Do you guys know what your glimmers are? What's the social work background? So
I know Avon had like glimmer sticks, but
I keep coming across it. So glimmers, so you have triggers and you have glimmers, right? So triggers are things that are usually going to bring up those negative feelings for you in your nervous system. So glimmers are the ones that are those positive feelings that you have. And
I like that.
Yeah, really look into it. I haven't updated our website a lot yet, but it is kind of refocusing, reshifting that mindset.
give us an example.
Yeah, I will. So for me, I'm a very nature person, and some days are very stressful for me. So my glimmers could just literally be walking outside, hearing the birds, seeing the sun, seeing my daughter's smiles, just having a moment of family time for about 5 minutes. Those things that like are very heartwarming to me. And if I can make a little bit of time for that each day, just totally can shift your mindset and your mood a little bit. So that's what glimmers are. On the opposite, triggers can do the same thing, right? Our triggers can completely shift our mindset for the whole day. So I'm working on a Glimmers project in my own time around Chloe's schedule. And I'm going to start off, I have to make a few pamphlets and stuff like that, but I love flowers. So flowers are another one of my glimmers. I love flowers. Haven't been able to do a lot of gardening the last 4 years with having two kids under 4, but I'm going to do a bunch of stems on a poster board in some local areas. I live out Westfield, so I'm going to see if I can do it in the library here. I don't really know. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to go yet, but just having free stems that moms or anybody can just grab a stem and have like a little glimmer note on there, a little reminder or a resource. And then, I'll say Chloe's cares on it. So hopefully that just makes someone's day a little bit, just a little glimmer for them. So those little small projects that I can do on my own time. And again, my background, social work, I've always been into volunteer work. I've always been into giving and providing. So you didn't know that project yet, Mom. So
I'm actually smiling. I'm listening, but I'm also laughing about all the times that you disappeared when we were in nature and working on planting all those glimmers.
I also have ADHD, and it was not my work time that I wanted to work.
Did you wander off down a hill?
Oh, I disappeared.
She was the worst. I just have to say though, nature is the most wonderful thing to me. Like, I mean, I'm autistic. Before I even knew that I was autistic, it was always nature that always made me feel better. When I have a big project, like a conference I was helping with a couple years ago, I spent so many days before that conference. I'm adjusting myself. Like it's like adjusting myself to that situation. I'm always thinking about things, but just spending some time in your glimmers, I guess your glimmer space maybe, can do a lot. And sometimes I will just have to go outside, and it's a little bit easier where, people like myself are in the Caribbean spring break, it's a little bit easier to soak in some of that. But even sometimes in Indiana on a cold January night where there's snow everywhere and you can go outside and it's just so quiet and peaceful, like that can definitely help reset people. So
well, as a behavior consultant too, whenever I did community work, we always did try to do a little bit of nature. I've always felt like that was calming, and just the sensory from that, right? Like the sounds, the smells, the air, and so you take people you work with to the park, maybe you walk, maybe you hike, whatever you do. But like, I always felt like that was, it was a small thing, but I always felt like it was very beneficial.
And the walking. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I just think that, again, back to the behavior consulting, back to Chloe Cares, is that sometimes not everybody remembers that or recalls how important those things are. So that's something else I kind of do with Chloe Cares platform, is just sharing reminders of like, here's something that's helpful for you today, So I think especially families with children with disabilities or adults with disabilities just kind of need that reminder of like, oh, hey, like a walk would be really good today, I think so, but yeah.
I do want to say something else about that. not everybody does love the outdoors. Like I absolutely do. And I know that we
So
often
true.
encourage our clients. But some people are also set in their ways. And there is also that fine line with like, how much do you encourage people and just be like, they know what they like. Let's go do something else. I feel like that can be a hard thing to kind of figure out with people. The more that I've learned about myself, the more I do realize as an autistic person that I am fairly set in my ways about certain things. And said to me, nature is a wonderful thing, but I also know some people that it absolutely is not.
True.
It is a trigger.
It's hard to not talk about behavior consulting because we are all behavior consultants and been doing it for so long. However, I would totally value whatever the individual's wants and desires are. So if that's something I knew about them, yeah, I'm not going to, unless they want it, unless it's their goal, they want to try some new things, those are some things that, yeah, I would.
It always ends up being kind of one of those health goals, right? Like,
Yeah.
really want to, get some steps in, or want to lose weight, or, I want to be healthy. And so that walk through the park was always a great way to do that. But then you do have some people that are like, oh, I would rather go bowling or,
yeah,
Or
indoor
not.
walking. I know the bug noises can be a lot for some individuals. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. So what's been the biggest change in your life since you've had Chloe? Maybe compared to, I was gonna say since you've had your first daughter, however, you had her during COVID. So it was like you had COVID baby and then COVID kind of didn't go away, but you were able to be a lot more social, and then having Chloe.
So you said, yeah, the biggest change. And honestly, I feel like I have to mention this when I'm talking about Chloe's age, is that postpartum, like reminding myself that I was actually in postpartum during all of this stuff, and with both my girls. So this is my second child, so it takes me over a year to really get out of that mental fog that I was in. So just putting that plug in here, that postpartum care, need to remember that, especially when you have moms that have children with disabilities.
That's a good topic. Do you think having two children back to back, do you think it was more intense with Chloe, or was it maybe not even as much noticeable because you were so busy? You had so much going on. Like, how did you?
It was a lot harder with Chloe because we were not getting, and my husband too, affected by this. Like, we're not getting adequate sleep because she was also a heart patient. She had heart surgery in June. So we went to the NICU. We weren't planning for her to be to the NICU. So that, like, I was asleep. Sleep was the big issue that really caught up with me. And Matt. So yeah, I would say with Chloe, it was a lot harder. And then we were adjusting to therapies coming into the house, which I'm so thankful for First Steps. They're amazing. We have a great team. She would not be where she was if it wasn't for them. But that would mean, like, some of her appointments are at 10 a.m. And I would have been, she's a newborn who had an NG feeding tube. So feeding was a lot in the middle of the night. So sleep, I think, really messed with that mental fog. And it was a lot harder with Chloe, and just obsessively researching, because I kind of hyper focus on topics. And so I will read a lot at night, and it was really hard to just settle my mind sometimes too. So,
you hear about postpartum, not as much as you should, but I think as somebody that has a child with a disability, at least knowing that that's even more intense.
Yeah, there are research papers, but talking about the trauma, the medical trauma that parents are going through, and then starting services. So kind of like, what do we as behavior consultants or practitioners consider about what the families have gone through, again, in terms of mental health and trauma? I know there's lots of trauma-informed care topics out there, but this is one that has affected me, and something to look a little bit more into. Like, and I mentioned it before, and I told myself I wasn't gonna say this, I have ADHD and I'm on Medicaid, so it makes things a lot harder. And I made sure with one of our second feeding therapists, I told her, I was like, I have ADHD. Like, I told her right away, so she knew how to best support me as well. But Chloe's OT is fantastic in considering, like, what can I handle as a mom, even without ADHD, but just like what we're going through. Like, she really considers that trauma informed information. And I think that's something that needs to continue to be, at the forefront of new moms and families.
What about you, Jennifer? What kind of experiences have you had with families with Outward Bound? Like when we have clients that call or they're like, hey, we just got a waiver. One of the things I'm a big stickler about is like, you got to get with those families right away. These families have been waiting for so long to get a call about the waiver, then to get the case manager, then to get a pick list and start calling around. It's like, we just try to bend over backwards to try to get in touch with them and be very upfront and very honest. Like right now, we've never done a wait list, mainly because I don't want to give somebody some false hope and have them holding on and waiting for us. I'm like, if I can recommend you to another company or just be really honest, go back to your case manager. We don't have it for you. But
We were the same at Supportive Behavior Services. We've never had a wait list. We will just keep, we will tell people we'll keep your name just in case you don't find anyone else. Once we have someone, we will call you. But in terms of a wait list, we absolutely don't do that because we definitely think there's enough behavior consultants out there. If we happen to be unable to provide the service, we would rather just be upfront about that. And then you can continue to call other people. But my experience, is not just at Supportive Behavior Services as a behavior consultant, but as a case manager.
Oh, that's right. We were all three case managers.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, so I mean, that experience of being a case manager, because that was the starting point for a lot of families, was the case manager. And I would go in and I remember the stories, right, of how families have been trying to navigate everything alone, trying to jump through every hurdle, jump over every line of fire that's set in front of you, just trying to set up these services. And like, that's not even the end of that journey, because now you get a pick list, right?
Yeah.
That's like, I felt guilty as a case manager handing a family who was overwhelmed a 10 to 20 page pick list and going, I'm not really allowed to help you with.
Yeah, I was gonna say
know.
it eventually got that way where as a case manager, you couldn't even really say anything.
Yeah, you couldn't
And you
suggest.
just like,
Now
here's
that
a
I'm not a
list.
case manager anymore, I will go ahead and say that sometimes I would be like, I've heard this and that, and who
This
has
one over
the
here.
ability,
Yeah.
because it was just awful to hand them that and just leave them alone. And I will tell you that, like, I remember testing the pick list myself because I had a big pick list, and I thought, what, I'm going to call every single one of these companies. And I can't remember how many. We're talking like a 5-page pick list at least. And I don't even remember which service. It was at like 10 people per page or something like that, 10 companies per page maybe. And I called every single one, and I maybe got 1 or 2 callbacks.
Most families tell me, they're like, I try to get the phone, or at least I used to. Now I don't know. Try to get the phone because I'm like, it's easier to just take a phone call than to return a phone call. But most families are like, oh my gosh, nobody ever picks up, or you're the only one that has call back. I'll even, like, if I don't have time to call people back and I know we don't have an opening, I'll just send them a text and just be like, this is so and so. I'm just responding, letting you know we don't have anybody.
To at least say
Unfortunately,
that,
nobody.
right? I think sometimes that was the issue, was like the family would call a company, they know they don't have the ability to provide the service, and so they just don't respond. And then that just leaves the family going, well, I mean, no one's calling me back, so like, what's the deal here? Do I have to call 500 companies just to get like one person to call me back? So that was kind of my memory as a case manager, that I always felt like that was a lot on a family to have to work through all of that. I do feel like once they kind of get to that place where they've got the case manager and the case manager is working with them and they got the 1 or 2 services in place, overall, I think they're pretty happy and things are kind of going smoothly most of the time. I feel like lately I've seen more turnover than I've ever seen before.
All the services,
Everything, I would say.
everything.
I mean, behavior is not as bad. Rec therapy is getting better. I feel like people can't get music. Like families I work with have been on wait list 2, 3, 4 years
Really?
for music. And that's just trying to get on as many wait lists as possible. And you don't know if you're still on the wait list, have you fallen off the wait list, or
Right.
are they actually maintaining it and calling you?
Well,
so,
I doubt that. I mean, and that's another thing. If families sit there and wait, and they get frustrated. I don't even know if there's a good answer to that, because the state started to have companies updating the portal whether or not they had openings in certain counties, but that's just a nightmare in itself as a provider to deal with. How do you deal with that? Well, you guys serve like 90 counties, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're statewide.
We
So
have them too, but sometimes we don't have somebody in those areas.
if we have areas that are difficult to get to, we still cover that area and we still try to. So it really just ends up being that if we can't, we'll let them know, hey, we just currently don't have anyone. But then we kind of focus on those areas to try to find people. But there are definitely areas that are harder to get to, that are more rural. And so for sure, like those people are going to experience that difficulty in finding services that they need.
Yeah.
Another parent perspective with our situation, Chloe, like parents don't have the time to make phone calls. Like I was a case manager, I was a BC, I was like, call this company, do this, do that. There's no time. They don't have time.
I was a case manager. I moved to Indiana in 2000. So I did case management way back when case managers were like behavior consultants. We had anywhere from 6 to 8 hours a month to spend with clients. Could you imagine? And so honestly, as a behavior consultant, I learned so much from that experience. But I just think services have gone downhill,
Yes.
quality of care, since that has changed. And that's the one thing I hear over and over from people. It's not necessarily the case manager's fault. There is such turnover. I mean, we went from having, I would say on average, low end 6 hours a month to spend with the client, right? And so that was paid at an hourly rate. It was just different because those case managers, so many of those people are still in the field doing something. They had the time, they knew their clients, they were in their areas typically. So they were very familiar with the different services and supports that were going on. They made the phone calls for the families. They took clients to look at apartments. They helped them find homes. They did so much of everything. Were you a case manager then, Jennifer, or had they already become IPMG? That's the thing. This was all before the state went to only having one case management company, and then they allowed there to be more, and then they went back to having just a couple of them. I mean, I guess that isn't that much choice, honestly, for people.
They have taken a lot of those really experienced, been in the field for years, case managers, and moved them up into management. So they've been pulled out of the field, which is great. It's a promotion for them, but it's pulled them out of the field. So now what we've seen is they become like the supervisors and the trainers, and they're really great. And some of the really good case managers that have been around for a long time are still in the field because I still work with them, but there are a lot of new people. A lot of new people trying to learn the ropes. And unfortunately, when you're a new person, you don't have a lot that you can tell a family that's, in need of assistance. What I see is more or less of okay, I'm here. Are you guys good? Do you want me to change any of your services? No? Okay, I'll see you in.
Yeah.
Kind of missing that social work piece of like connecting
Yes.
resources. And I mean, I do appreciate again the life course framework, and that's where a lot of those program and planning are supposed to be happening. I can't speak in terms of
it's not.
I know, but I
have
can't
not
speak in
ever
terms
been
of
to a meeting.
why, like there's it's a lot of documents. So it's not just, I'm not going to blame it on the case manager for not doing it. It just might not be the best. So I think.
It's half of a system. That's the thing. They have the second half and they're forgetting the first half, which is all those maps that we used to do. I think we've all done those maps because we all have a background in social work too. So that is where you discover, like, all of this stuff is supposed to be in the PCISP, but when you're not having those meetings, when you don't have the funding for those meetings, you don't have the time, none of these families really that I know participate in these person-centered planning meetings where you are just starting with the basic. You start with that person, and then Kayla, you and I talk about this a lot, the social systems around the people. Like, the government isn't going to be giving us any more money. They're going to continue to take things away and try to spread it amongst the people that need help. However, we have a whole community of people with disabilities and families that don't have community. And so, bringing them resources and supports and each other, to have those supports. Because what I've heard from you, Kayla, through most of this is like all of the other people before you that have been through this that are here, you know, to help you and
I was
help
just
guide
thinking,
you.
I was just thinking about that again, like, and Chloe cares. Like, I'm so thankful that I talk and I ask questions to moms that I need help with, and that there are people who have the answers. And again, the Facebook group, we're just, you know, we are a lot in the Facebook group. Lots of us are busy. And so we even have the, you know, DSI is made up of, you know, volunteers and some people that are not mothers of children with disabilities or Down syndrome, but there are mothers of children with Down syndrome there. So they're in our Facebook group, and they are very active in knowing lots of information in terms of resources that we're talking about. And so we'll ask a question, boom, there goes, you know, one of our ladies from DSI, and we'll give her the answer, give us the links, share a phone call, doing stuff that maybe a case manager could be doing on the waiver, but that I'm just thankful again for that connection. And that's why I have Chloe Cares part. Like I said, there's several different programs where I can continue doing that, and I can continue sharing the messages and the information that I receive too. So I didn't mention Gigi's Playhouse yet, but that is another big company with Down syndrome that we haven't used a lot yet with Chloe. We're just not there, but I know like for elementary age kiddos and adults, they have all free activities, and it's a really good hub to go to where our kids can feel supported and connected and safe with amongst other families. I've gone to a couple of like their music group on Friday mornings, but there are two groups that are for my daughter's age. She's doing feeding therapy, she's sleeping. It just doesn't work for us yet, but it is another really good organization out there that supports
Now that's in
Down
Indianapolis, but it's actually a national
syndrome.
organization.
Mm-hmm.
And now,
Yes.
Kayla, you also mentioned Down syndrome, Indiana. Now, I live in southern Indiana, just 8 miles north of Louisville. So a lot of people are very into the Down syndrome of Louisville, which is really good. So depending, Indiana's got all these states around it. So you might be up north and you might be involved with Down syndrome of Chicago or Illinois, Ohio.
Yeah. And that's actually something I didn't realize. I was talking to your friend Amy and asking her what Down syndrome organizations were in the area so that I could take this money that we're fundraising and give back to that community, since we are based out of Charlestown. And she didn't mention that one. She mentioned another one, but I did see that DSI, Down syndrome Indiana, you can create little hubs in some areas. So I can't get on too much yet. I need to slow my roll and be a mom and stuff. And but that is something that is a possibility, I think. So
Is that hard for you too, Jennifer? Because I know you're a social worker, and social workers just tend to have this thing where they just want to do everything.
You want to do everything. And I lead the training committee with the Indiana Behavior Association. And I always have to tell my team, I'm sorry if I take off on a tangent about what we're going to do 3 years from now, because I know what we have to focus on this year, but I'm always thinking, well, what's next? What's next? What's next? And I have to refocus myself, just like finish this one thing first, and then we'll move on to the next thing. But it's exciting, right? It's exciting about like the good things you can do and the projects you can work on and the things you can create. Like, I think that's fun, and it's beneficial. It's beneficial to you. And
that's for me, it's like my brain has just always had a social work mind. And so you see where your skill sets can help and what you can do, but you also have to have self-care, and you have to not max yourself out so you can do well in all of your components. I actually told myself in January that I was not going to do anything extra. I wasn't going to do anything. I was just going to do outward bound community services. And then a month later, I came up with Chloe Cares, and then randomly decided to join our HOA committee here in my neighborhood too. So
really, that was a mistake. Good luck with
I know.
That.
I'm gonna hang out for a second and then I'm gonna leave.
What about you, Jennifer? Besides this project, are there any projects that you're working on or you're trying, that's you're wanting to make happen?
We just finished a manual with the Indiana Behavior Association for behavior consultants.
Good.
It took us over a year to make it, and we just released it in January. And so now we're working on a website, so a CEU website.
Oh, that's right. You told me that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So we're just starting that out. So we're in the beginning stages and currently trying to research like what our options are to kind of create that. So we're still very focused on like supporting the behavior consultants right now and trying to make sure they have all the training materials that they have and the resources that they have. But yeah, I'm on the HRC, and so we just volunteer for everything, I think, like because there's just so many
much.
there's so much you can do and you want to do it all, but for sure you do have to kind of go, some things are more of a time commitment. And I've always said that like if I spread myself too thin and things start to fail, then I'll start to go back. So
Right.
because we're all still behavior consultants. So I still work in the field as well, as running supportive behavior services and then being a part of the association. So yeah, we stay busy.
So you guys do monthly CEUs, right? What are some of your upcoming ones?
We are booked up right now until midsummer with I think we just did one on like suicide prevention. And then there's been some on like specific diagnoses and different strategies to work with those, with people. And so, yeah, there's been a lot of different topics. Ethics, obviously, we always make sure to get ethics in there. We've got one every month throughout the year.
Every month. All right. Hey, let's talk real quick about some resource fairs because I know that there's a lot coming up and I wrote some down and I'm going to share some links. So these are a few that I know of. There is one with at Hamilton County at Carmel High School on March 26th, a transition fair.
You said a transition fair?
Yes. So it's like a provider fair. So this time of year, a lot of like the school corporations or high schools will put on a transition fair. Some of them are led by self advocates with ARC, and I think I got these from the ARC. Their website has an events calendar and has a bunch of provider fairs on. That one, March 26th, is 6 to 7:30. Hamilton County Disability Resource Fair at Carmel High School. A couple other fairs, April 1st in St. John, Indiana. The Lake Central School Corporation, they're having a provider fair. There's one on April 5th in South Bend. One on the 24th in Chesterton, Indiana. And then there's several on the 26th of April. One in Indy with the ARC, and then actually myself and some other agencies are putting one on in Hanover on the 26th of April.
Wow.
The ARC of Indiana has an event page, which is where I found several of these. They seem to have the bigger list of resource fairs, but if you're looking for services, not even necessarily services, because a lot of times there's more like resource agencies like the ARC, Down Syndrome of Indiana, Special Needs Living Magazine, Special Olympics. A lot of times those places will come to those fairs.
Needs will also typically come to some of them too, and they will also help families sign up for the waiver too.
Indiana, the Independent Living Council is having a big event on Monday, March 31st in Lafayette at the Tippecanoe Fairgrounds. It is a Lafayette town hall. There's going to be local legislators. Maybe I hear that a lot of legislators these days are not showing their face. So it starts at 3. There'll be exhibits from 3 to 7. So like local providers and organizations. From 4 to 5, there'll be a conversation with legislators, and then 5:30 to 6:30, there'll be roundtable discussions. It sounds like they might be breakout, and so one's about accessible healthcare. Another one is promoting the independent living network. Another one is about emergency and disaster preparedness. Another one is about guardianship and guardianship alternatives, which I cannot stress enough. Guardianship alternatives. And transportation. So I will include this in the link as well.
And I've seen a couple of caregiver self-care retreats coming up. I know Special Needs Living Magazine has their retreat coming up. I saw another one that I'm not familiar with, but it's on my Facebook. That was also another self-care day, and I believe they have like a speaker coming to talk to caregivers, like parents, grandparents, those kinds of things. So I will reshare those on our Facebook group, and then you can tag those if you want to.
Yeah, I'm hoping to kind of get out of some of this is just as social workers. I mean, that's in your blood. So it's just the sharing of information and ideas and concepts and relationships and community. So I would love to have people send us their ideas. We're hoping to get guests to come on. Send us your events. You know, we'll put them out there for you. We're going to try to be as non-controversial as possible because we don't want things to get muddled down, but there are things we're going to call people out if need be. I know we also have a passion for politics and whatnot. So
at some point, we'll be talking about, you know, how to contact your legislators and just kind of ways to help you make those connections, because that'll be important for you probably in the days to come.
definitely. So that was our plan today, but this went so well, and Kayla talked way longer than she ever said she was going to. So
You just gotta tell me to leave and I
no,
would have
this is
left.